vacation and you realize it's the day before you're about to go home and you haven't actually bought one thing to remind you of the place or for the dog sitter or your sister or whoever. So you run into a souvenir shop that's right downtown, but it's like stuffed to the gills all the way to the ceiling with t-shirts and magnets and things that look like they were made in China and not where you actually are. And it's just kind of overwhelming. Well, so have we. And so here are our 5 favorite things that we always look for when we're traveling to bring home with us. Do you want to see?
Traveling is such a great time to bring home those wonderful treasures that you're going to remember forever.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie, it takes a little foresight and planning to not fall into the trap of same old, because I mean, frankly, how many more t-shirts do you need? And how many more I've been there, done that t-shirts that you're giving away? Seriously, it takes some planning. It's almost like when you're shopping for a car.
Yeah.
You ever notice when you're looking for something, all of a sudden, you see the cars you're looking for, you see the colors, the makes, you're paying attention. But when you're not...
I see Mini Coopers everywhere.
But when you're not shopping for a car, then you don't pay attention. You're just driving from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And hunting treasures while you're shopping can be more than point A to point B if you're looking for the right things.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing about buying things when you're traveling is to find things that you actually want in your home and in your life so they remind you of the place and you have a little 5-second vacation every time you see them. You know, we fill our shelves, but also with really useful things that we actually are like, I need to have a spoon. I might as well have a spoon from a place that reminds me of an island that I was in once. So every time I put sugar in my coffee, well, I don't put sugar in my coffee, but in my tea, then I remember it. I think that's the goal. Or even better, you can give a gift to someone that's like a little capsule of a place that they weren't able to be with you, but you remembered them and you thought of them and your eyes light up when you tell them the cool story of what you got. And it's just a little bit of a mental shift to think about things that really will hit meaning rather than just like, I have to get a present for my mother-in-law or she's gonna be hurt. You know, it's different.
So in today's Red Teapot Chat, what we're gonna do is share with you treasures that we bring for inspiration. You can look at it and say, maybe that's an idea I can steal. Obviously, natural things that we both look for, and who knows if this is like the apple didn't fall far from the tree, I don't know, but it's accessories. So we always look for scarves, jewelry, things that are small that can fit into a suitcase that just you can bring home. They make great gifts for people, but it's those treasures that remind you, like you'll see us wearing a lot of our jewelry. This happens to be one of my favorite pieces, and there's a story behind it. When I was in this village in southern Italy, we were in this small hillside town, and there was this French woman who had a beautiful collection of jewelry and art and stuff, and it was one of those stores that you kind of almost talk yourself out of because it's like it's too expensive. And I thought, well, I'll just treat this like a museum. I'm gonna go in and look, and I saw this necklace and I was afraid to look at the price. And there's times like that when you find it and you kind of go, I don't know. High rent district.
And everything feels more expensive when you're traveling.
It does.
You go to Anthropologie and it's like, oh, it's $150 for this necklace, and somehow that seems like a thing because you're home and but $150 when you're traveling sounds so expensive.
So I did see it, and then I did ask to see it and try it on, and I looked at the price and I was shocked that it was something I could actually afford, because you have to think about it. Like Janelle's talking about a jewelry from Anthropologie. Maybe it's not going to be something that you buy at Target, but it could be something that you buy at a boutique or a higher end store that's a little bit better quality. So anyway, I bought this. I probably spent more than $40 than what I would buy for a necklace at Chico's, for example, that wasn't on sale. But this brings me so much joy. And every time I wear it, I get happy because it takes me to that place that I was at. Now, you may not like as big a jewelry as we do, but the point is, it's easy to find those things that tell stories, and that's what you're looking for. Whether it's a handmade, like this was actually a scarf that we use as a table runner.
Because it's beautiful and we want it in our life all the time. And we're not gonna use a heavy scarf all the time, but we do have a table, and it's, you know, pulling that out, it gives you something extra. I think when you are packing in a suitcase, it's a little bit easier to justify, you know, jewelry or a scarf or something, because you already, you have the space for it. So rather than like a piece of artwork or something. But I think that you can also think ahead a little bit. Sometimes when I'm going to a region of the world that I know makes, you know, great leatherware or something like that, I might bring, like every time I go to Mexico or to Central America, I always bring a pair of sandals that I don't really love, in case I'm probably gonna find, I love the huarache sandals that are beautiful leather that I get every time I'm there. And there are great importers in the United States that you can get that are ethically made, that bring them out, but they're pretty expensive. But when you're there, you can find things that are in the market and they're handmade and they're, you know, straight from the stores, and they're $15 instead of $200. And so every time I go to that region, I know I'm gonna come home with a pair of those sandals. So I leave a little room in my suitcase for them.
But you don't have to travel internationally to look for this either.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite things to do in any city if I have extra time is go to a thrift store or go to a consignment store.
Or a Sunday morning flea market.
Or a market, or if you can find an art fair going on. Those are where you can find really great treasures, and usually you can find, especially if it's an art fair or something like that, actually have the story of the artisan telling you about how they made it or what they created. And again, it's that what you bring home is, we treasure the stories that remind us of places, so that when you're in the middle of winter and it's a gloomy day or whatever, you can look at something and immediately it brings you joy.
They don't have to be expensive either. My favorite pieces of jewelry are things that I've picked up in, you know, Thailand for, you know, $10, but I love them and I treasure them and they remind me of the place, but it feels like a little special steal every time I pull them out. It doesn't have to be expensive, it just has to be meaningful to you.
A second thing, no particular order, that we always look for is we go to the grocery store.
Go to the grocery store!
Looking for sundry items. And obviously, as you get to know us, we travel a lot, so we go to any grocery store no matter where I'm at, but it doesn't matter. You know, I could be in Central Ohio and I would go to the Amish market and find out what they
in the
have.
Midwest.
So, as an example, let's show you things that we always look for.
Yeah.
I always look for salt.
Salts.
Unusual salts. This salt came from an island off of, where was I? Just south of Treviso, not Croatia. The other one doesn't matter. Just north of Croatia, in between. It was just a sliver of Slovenia. Anyway, this salt came from there. And the little man who bought it from in the market told me his whole story, but I have gifted it. I bought 4 of them and I gave them as gifts to friends and they were thrilled. And this is our last one.
I love giving like sundry items and things from grocery stores as presents when people come home, because you can buy multiples. So if you have multiple people in your family or coworkers or whatever, they pack small, but it's literally the thing that they can't get at home. And it feels like a little window into a place, but it's not super expensive, but it's thoughtful, but it's something that anyone's gonna like, a jam or a hot sauce or salt or, you know, a spice.
Now don't judge, but I also look for unusual things like meats and
We love tinned fish, tinned meats.
My husband's a big one, and so like these are from Galicia, some razor clams. These are from that same region. These are more like, I don't remember what's in here, to be honest. He just always looks for them, and then we pull them out at parties.
You can always find him in the tinned fish aisle.
We put them out in the party, or like, don't judge, but I like foie gras, so we pick it up. Pâtés, it's a lot cheaper. We bring them home, and then usually we have a party afterwards with the things that we have curated
that we found from that trip, and then we share the goodies from that last trip.
Doesn't take up a whole lot of space,
and they last forever.
If it's sealed, it's going to go through. No FDA person's gonna say you can't have it.
And then the other thing that we love to bring are jams and honeys. Things from, and like this one, we got in Colorado when we were visiting my brother and sister-in-law. It doesn't have to be, you know, out of the country, but everywhere you go has something that is local. And I love honeys because you're literally getting a piece of the area, of the flowers in the area. And so every time you have a cup of tea, you know, we were in Alaska, and my husband and I brought these home for you because they were spruce tip jellies, and I just thought that was cool.
Where are you going to find spruce tip jellies in your local?
Jelly.
I brought this back for Janelle when we were in Portugal, and she wasn't with us, and we were at a bed and breakfast, and the lady served us their own honey made with raspberries. Delicious. And rosemary's and raspberry together. Oh, to die for. But I knew I wanted to share that experience with her, so I brought this jar back with her. And sometimes people are concerned, oh my gosh, I can't bring glass, it's gonna break and whatever. We have other videos about
we'll do packing.
But you know, you can, there's ways to do that. You can, I've never had jars break, put it that way. It's worth bringing it home.
And I think all those things, creams, pastos, sweet things, savory things.
Hot sauce.
Hot sauces make great presents that are unique to the place, that have different flavor profiles. My favorite thing to bring back though are spices. I love how anytime you go to a different region or a different country, you're gonna have spices that are unique to there, that are in a lot of their food. And if you go to the grocery store, you're going to find real prices that people really pay versus if you're at the airport, at the tourist store. So I love having spices from different regions. Like I was just in Hungary, in Budapest, and then I was in Spain. Both of those places are famous for paprikas, but the paprikas are a little bit different. Yeah. So I brought back smoked and hot and sweet from different places, and now we have like all these different types of paprikas that we can play around with and see what the differences are. And then, you know, they're in our spice drawer, and every time I use them, I think of that place, and it has like a connection, and they make great presents. If you bring back a little pouch of saffron or vanilla beans or whatever it is, that's something that any foodie is going to love much more than a t-shirt.
Your father and I were, we live on the East Coast, and we were just taking a day trip. We didn't even spend the night. We were just going to the Eastern Shore, if you've ever been to those boardwalk type towns, there's just full of what we were talking about earlier, t-shirts and magnets and all that stuff. So I chose to go into the grocery store there, and I found some local products that I brought back that it brought me much more joy than a magnet would have.
Although no one would say no to some saltwater taffy.
That was in the market. So you find that kind of stuff by just foresight and getting off the beaten track.
So moral of the story is go to the grocery store. One of our favorite things to collect are little pottery pieces and ceramics and just housewares, little things that you can easily tuck in a suitcase, that you can roll and close, that don't take up a lot of room, but that you actually can incorporate in your life. We love collecting mugs because you can usually find a mug wherever you are, and then every time you have coffee, then it becomes like something that you really use every day. But my favorite things are I love little spoons. Even if you're if you go somewhere, you're at a flea market or a craft show, and someone has these beautiful pottery pieces. Like we just picked this one up in Spain when we took our K66 trip last year, and it was beautiful. But I think I paid $15.
No, that was €10. So
10 euros. Yeah.
$10.
But you might see, a beautiful potter that has some larger things, and it might feel a little bit more intimidating, but you can always get little dishes that are going to be really cheap, or
we picked those up there too.
Yeah, the same place. Little spoons. And what I love about little spoons is you always need, you're going to have to pull a spoon out of your drawer to put with your jam or to put out with something anyway. So it might as well be something that reminds you of a place.
So when company comes over, instead of just putting out jam,
you have to have a spoon.
You can use a cute spoon, and then we'll show you a cute spoon.
It has a story. Years ago, we were on a little island off of Belize called Key Cocker, and this is a spoon that is made out of a conch shell. It's literally just the edge of a conch shell, and I thought it was super cool, and we were on the street, and I think we paid $5,
maybe $3.
But we keep it with our sugar, and so every time we have tea out of the red teapot, I remember this little island in Belize all the time, and
it's a daily joy.
It is.
And that's the point.
And that was years ago, but I remember it all the time because some little thing came home with me and is now a part of my life.
Another example of that same kind of thing that's a daily joy is, I don't want to tip it over because I still our finishing
precious salt.
Because we do have lots of salts, and someday we'll have a video on why we have so many salts. But I picked this up in the end of the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain, and it has the little symbol of the wayward, but it fits your thumb great, which is why I picked it up. But we use this right by the stove, and so when we have a fresh caprese salad or
anything that needs a little sprinkle,
we go in and boop. But I love it. And it reminds me of a place. And this really was a small memory, but you have to look for it.
We had to put the salt in something. Why not something that reminds you of somewhere that you love? And it doesn't have to be out of the country. I was visiting my my godmother, who lives in a beach town in
Outside of Virginia Beach.
Out in the Eastern Shore, and they have cute little gift shops because it's a cute little beach town. And this is a set that I love so much. I think it's so beautiful, and it was 2 hours down from me.
It is cute,
but it reminds me of her. It reminds me of that trip, and it just brings me a little bit of joy.
So continuing talking about silverware, cool, funky stuff. Like, why not? And
those we got in Argentina.
I did. And sometimes when you're traveling, especially internationally, you can pick up stuff that's much cheaper than you can get it here.
And it's ethically sourred. Those were made from the market. They were you're meeting the artisan. You know, you're not just buying something that is not going to be ethically sourced or done well.
But a lot of times I think people, when they're traveling or when you're in a new city or in your city, for example, you might talk yourself out of going into a boutique that feels a little too fancy because maybe the owner hasn't done a good job of making it feel welcoming. But as a former person who used to have a retail store, one of the things that all of us do is we have things that are higher end, obviously, that we fall in love with and want to share with the world. But we always look for those little treasures that are on the lower side. So if you're looking, don't talk yourself out of going into places like that.
Yeah, you can get little vases and little things, and those are the things that fit in your suitcase.
They'll have little things, and then now that you're training your eye to look for stuff, you can start bringing it in, and it doesn't have to take up a whole lot of room in your suitcase. That's the point. But sometimes you find treasures that are a little bigger, so let's talk about that. I was in Florence, I think, and I went into a store that I love design, and I was in this store, and this lady had this beautiful bowl. I just love the shape, and I like white, and I thought, I want it. In fact, I walked away thinking, how am I gonna get this home? And then I thought, Charlene, you're being stupid. And I walked back about an hour later, I traced my steps and found it again. And I bought it. And it brings me joy every time I use it.
Yeah.
And so you might think, how am I going to bring it home? So I just stuff it with socks and underwear, and bras are really good.
All the things you have to bring back anyway.
You have to bring back. And I wrapped it really good, and I put it. And if you're ever afraid, like we were, these cups that we drink out of a lot, you'll see us drinking when we have red teapot chats, is I got these in Vietnam, and they bring me so much joy, but it came with a teapot. And so I bought the teapot, and I was a little scared about the teapot because of the thing, so I just hand carried it. So you can make those decisions, but don't talk yourself out of collecting things and bringing things back, or a nice gift to, you know, that special friend or the person who's watched your dog, all that kind of stuff. You can do amazing little things by just keeping an eye out for small little treasures. Another thing that we always pick up and look for when we're traveling is art.
For sure.
I like being able to sponsor artisans no matter where I go. So I started by, you know, buying paintings or something, but there's only so much space that you have in a home to bring back a piece of artwork.
And sometimes you fall in love with something that's big and you just have to bring it home, or you can ship things home, and that's not a big deal. If you fall in love with something, don't say no.
So years ago, I created what we call our travel wall, where I was looking for little things like postcards and things that reminded me of a place, and then we started just doing a huge gallery wall so that every time we're traveling, I started looking for that.
And that's moved from house to house to house. It's the first thing we always want to put up when we move to a new place, or when you move, and when I have, you know, when I've lived on my own, then I started my own travel walls, and then when my husband and I got married and we traveled together, then we created our own travel wall, and it's just something that you can continue to add to. Little things, larger things, just small things that remind you of the place.
And sometimes we buy stuff, and like this is from our last trip when we took our venture friends to our first Kilometer 66 trip to northern Spain in 2022. And I picked this up because it made me happy, and it made me think of the women and what fun we had meeting little old men in the plazas. But I'll hang it eventually. I'm not going to get around to it, but you may think, how do I get this home? So I always have like a sketchbook or something. I had it in my journal, and it came home just fine.
Totally fine.
No wrinkles. So you can think about stuff like that.
My favorite is I always have a backpack with me, and my backpack has a laptop sleeve.
Right.
It's padded. And so things like this that are flat, this is my pile from the last set of trips that I've been on, and I just haven't gotten around to hanging them up yet, but I just keep them, and then when I'm ready to add them to my travel wall, then I'll take a day and I'll frame them. But all of these just fit in the back sleeve of my laptop case right next to my laptop. They're padded, they're protected, it's flat, no harm done. And I know a lot of people think like, oh, especially if maybe you're on a longer trip, or, I backpacked for years. And one trip I did where I was out of the country for 2 years straight with a backpack on my back. And you know what I did? I brought home a whole bunch of small little pieces.
Okay, but at the hostels, what did people say?
They were like,
can't go shopping.
I'm gone for 2 months, so I can't bring anything home with me because I don't have room in my backpack. That's crap. And don't you want to remember this trip that you were on? The best way to do that is with tiny little pieces that are super thin, they're not fragile, they're not in glass. Collect things.
You can put them in your office. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. Now, we kind of slammed magnets earlier, and I'm not against and opposed to magnets.
Sometimes
it's just
they're
that
cool.
if they're, can you open this while I talk? If they're going to be a mountain magnet, they better be cool. So I have this from a place that we bought, and I haven't started putting them anywhere because I don't have enough.
There.
Collections
You'll make
are
a
about
little magnet collection.
And when you start having enough, then you can put them in a shadow box, put them up in a wall. They don't have to go on a refrigerator. In fact, I think a lot of magnets on a refrigerator look tacky. That's my opinion. If you do it, you love it, it's your life.
Okay.
But for me, I don't like them. But I'm starting to collect them because I'm now looking. So I found on this last trip a cool one, and I picked it up because I thought, I can do that. So it's the thing about looking.
Yeah, and thinking outside of the box.
Yeah,
maybe you're not,
I
will. Maybe you're not in a spot that has, an artist on the street that's painting, or sometimes you don't find something that you love, but you can always look for postcards, and sometimes postcards are really beautiful, and you can frame them, and then it becomes a 4x6 that works great in a gallery. Or you can think a little bit outside the box. We were
museum stores.
Yeah, in the same trip to Spain, we were in the Altamira Caves, which is the oldest cave structure in the world, the oldest cave painting in the world, and we were looking for something to commemorate it, but I didn't find any art that I really loved. But they did have this bookmark that I thought was really cool. And so we can frame that, and voila, bookmark becomes artwork. And same thing, we have things from all over the world that you get a little bit creative about. Your favorite is?
Sometimes I'm looking for a Christmas ornament, and it's harder and harder to find Christmas ornaments, but keychains, awesome.
Great Christmas ornaments. But collecting Christmas ornaments from different places that you're traveling, if you celebrate, or whatever holiday, if you want to have those things that you bring out every holiday, then it becomes really meaningful. So maybe this holiday we'll pull out all of our collection of ornaments that we've had throughout the years because they're from everywhere that we've traveled.
Let us know if you want to see it, and we'll make it. A favorite of mine is going to a bar. This is my latest. It was trips from last week. My husband and he took me out on my date for my birthday, and we went to a museum in DC. It had a bar, and this was the coaster that's holographic.
You're always
still a
stealing
coaster, so I do steal them. They're going to throw them away. This is from Machu Picchu, and I love this cork one. So of course I'm going to take it. They're going to throw them away. This is another cork. So I literally will start putting them up on my travel wall, and it just is something you can collect, stick in your suitcase. And what's the worst that could happen? You bring it home and you go, what was I thinking? Just throw it away. Throw it away. No one's counting, no one's keeping score, but it could just be that treasure.
It could be something really special. And the same vein, I love collecting menus. When you've been in a special place and you had a really special meal, like this was a trip, on the same trip to Spain that we were at, we ended with this beautiful meal. It was a Michelin star restaurant at the end of the Camino de Santiago, and they had this really cool menu that showed the tasting menu, but on the backside was the map of the whole region that they were pulling ingredients from. And I just think it's a really cool print. And one of my favorite things to do if you have a really special meal is ask the restaurant if you can take a menu, but ask the chef to sign it. And then you have a memory. Even if the thing isn't so special, you remember what you ate and you remember the moment. And that's really the whole point.
Even things like napkins. Just make sure you get more than one. So I'm intending to frame this. I thought this was a great napkin, so I asked the waitress if I could have a couple, and I stuck them in my trusty little book.
Yeah.
And they've come back with me, and I will frame this someday. And can't you imagine just how cool this is going to look when it's framed?
And
so think outside the box.
ticket stubs can be really cool. Stickers from museums.
This is a wine label that I
Exactly.
asked at a winery if I could have the label because it was about a pig and I thought it was hilarious. So she thought I was crazy, but I said, do you have an extra sticker you can give me from the bottle of wine we just drank? And she went back and got me a sticker. So you just never know. Think outside the box.
sometimes-
This is a postcard from a restaurant we just went to here locally. They give out postcards. If they give stuff like that, keep it. It may not make my travel wall, but what's the worst could happen?
You never know. Once we shipped a box of things back from Argentina that we were traveling together, and we had a whole bunch of things. Was it Guatemala?
Guatemala.
Sorry, from Guatemala. We had gotten a whole bunch of fabrics. That's another story that was incredible. And so we shipped this box slow boat back. So it, it took a long time, but it was the cheapest way to get home. And when it got home, they had taken individual stamps of the whole amount of stamps that we needed and lined this box with stamps. And we thought it was the coolest thing ever. So we cut out the cardboard and we framed it, and it's on the travel wall. And I love looking at that collection of stamps. I think it's so beautiful.
I found this collection of stamps in a little market in Morocco. I mean, like, think outside the box. But you can find things that mean something to you. It may not be don't get hung up on our style, get hung up on your style and find things that you can start bringing into your home.
That tell a memory. Our last category is a little bit more broad, and I think is the one that tends to scare people a little bit more, because we really love bringing home collections and antiques and things that are special to the place that you find, that are maybe a little bit more unique. And I think that can get a little bit overwhelming because people think, oh, I want to go into an antique shop or a charity store or a flea market or wherever because I can't bring home, a huge piece of furniture, or like I'm not looking for dishes or whatever. But we love hunting around for things because you can always find small little treasures that, and it's the same thing, you bring them home in your suitcase, it's not a big deal, they can be small, but they can be things that become really special, especially if you're already looking for things because you're collecting. And that's a whole other video that we did, so be sure that you check that out because we cover a lot about ways that you can start bringing collections into your life. And one of the biggest ways is if you're traveling, if you're somewhere, if you know the thing that you're looking for, then you can keep your eye out. And then even better when you bring a collection in that has a story because it was collected in this place and that place or wherever you are.
I think it's important to go to like charity shops, thrift stores, markets, antique stores, and not be intimidated by, as Janelle was saying, and look. So years ago when I don't know, you must have been 12. We were in England and we went to a church charity shop. They have them over there. That's what they call it. Found this great lamp that you're going to see in a lot of our studio.
It's in all of our videos because it's in our studio.
And we found it for like $1. And it was the coolest shape. I stuffed it full of our clothes,
and it was large
in
enough
our suitcase
that you would talk yourself out. But like, I'm not going to bring a lampshade home. But it was so cool, and it was light. So we stuffed things around it, and it was fine.
And we made it home.
And we've had it ever since.
Yeah. Other things that started a collection was years ago we were in South America, and I found this bell
in a market.
Got great sound. And I picked it up. I love it. It's probably going to geek some people out, but it's so old. It's made with a bone.
So it was a farm bell.
It was a farm bell. And I just think it's awesome. And it started this collection. So now we have
bells.
Bells.
And ever since then, you've been looking for bells. And then when you're traveling places or in auctions,
they
come to her. And now we have this beautiful collection of bells because we were somewhere and it sparked inspiration.
Because you look for it. That's the point. You look for it.
And sometimes it's not about a collection. Sometimes something just calls to you. Like, we were in Romania. She knew exactly what I was going to reach for. We were in Romania with her and I and my sister-in-law. We were doing an event that we were working on.
We were at a women's trafficking conference.
Anti-trafficking. You have to say anti-trafficking.
Sorry, anti, yes.
And so we had a few days and we were in Romania and we popped into this little antique shop that was stuffed to the gills, really cool little spot. And all of us just went straight
to
this clock. And I think it's so beautiful. And it wasn't huge and it wasn't expensive.
It's light, it doesn't take room, so that's why you don't overpack your suitcase.
We've been fighting about it ever since, but fortunately now we live in the same house, so it doesn't matter. But you can have those things, like all kinds of things. You know, I collect compasses, and sometimes I'll be traveling and you'll find things that, you know, that's a tiny little thing, but it fills up space and you can tuck it in places, but you bring it home and it just makes you so happy.
Hand it to me, because that's one that you found in a little market. We could have talked ourselves out of this.
Yeah.
But guys, we're not talking much space. What's your other compass? It's not much space.
Yeah, tiny little things. I mean, they're meant to travel. But they
look how cool that is.
They're things that I'm collecting.
Took no space.
Oh, in the same market, we were in Riga on the same trip in Latvia, and show them the teapot behind you.
I'll have to get it.
Sometimes, you know, you find something that might seem a little bit more fragile or seems like, oh, I can't do it. But, you know, we love bringing home pottery and ceramics, and we were at this it was a church kind of rummage sale, and they had this
I fell in love with the color.
Beautiful set. Like, look at the crackle on that. It's so pretty. And we were a little bit nervous, but we wrapped them real good, and we stuck them in our suitcase, and it was fine. But that piece just brings us so much joy. And sometimes you can think a little bit out of the box. We were in Peru, in Lake Atacama, which is a really beautiful spot that you can go to if you possibly can, you should. And we were touring, we were doing an eco tour that you stay overnight in a homestay on this island of these floating cities that are in the middle of this lake. It's an incredible story, it's an incredible people, and we really wanted something to remember that space by.
We should do a venture trip there.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Anyway, keep going.
And one of the things that it wasn't necessarily for sale, but people they have yarn and they make these tassels as part of the hats that they wear. And we asked if it was possible for us to buy one, and she was thrilled. And she had made them for her daughter, and she was happy to share them with us. And
the ladies wear them in their hair.
Yeah, and you'll notice that these are in all of our videos because they're just hanging on the side of a bookshelf in our studio. And every time I see them, they make me happy.
We thought that they'd be a good Christmas ornament, but they look really big on the tree.
They're a little large.
They're in our studio.
Think outside the box. It doesn't have to be something that screams antique, but it can be something that adds to a collection or just brings you a little bit of joy from a memory.
Things that just speak to you is the thing you're looking for.
Yeah.
I collect Nautiluses, so this one just spoke to me. I knew I was going to add it to a collection that I've had. So collections are important.
That's another one, is it doesn't have to be from a store. You love collecting shells, and we love finding, you know, rocks and gems and geodes, and those can be like natural things. Can be something whether you find them or you buy them or you know go to where they're made or where they're found. That can be something that's incredibly special to the space, and you know it doesn't even have to cost a lot.
And you may be saying to yourself, how do you get this stuff home? Which is why in one of our packing videos, we always talk about carrying a duffel or something so that as you go along, you can bring it. So
that collapsible bag on the way home has saved our butt over and over and over again.
That's how I bring stuff back, because I don't go that way, but on the way back, I don't care if I'm putting it down below in the hold. It'll get to me eventually, or I have insurance. So anyway, that's what you want to do, is just think about how you can bring stuff back. It doesn't have to fit in your suitcase. You can collect as you go. Don't stop thinking about it. It makes a big difference if you have stuff.
Those are 5 of our favorite things to bring when we're traveling. I'd love to hear your favorites. If there's anything that we missed or things that you love to bring or a favorite treasure that you got when you're traveling, I'd love to hear about it. And I hope that you enjoy a little bit of inspiration from our travels.